Today, we're turning back the clock, at least a little bit, to this past offseason. We have a 2023 NFL redraft for you guys today. Should be tons of fun. We also have our week 15 NFL predictions. Of course, we're in the middle of playoff season, so playoffs are right around the corner, and these weeks matter more so than ever, right? But Amir, of course, you're joining us on this Thursday. How you doing on this Thursday morning?
I'm doing good, man. It's a blessing to be on this podcast week by week, and kind of not taking this NFL season for granted. It's coming to a close, fast, but I'm happy to be here.
We're gonna kick it off here, and obviously cover the thumbnail rather. And we're not gonna beat around the bush. Amir, you're gonna take the even picks or the odd picks, excuse me. I will take the even, and we're gonna go through this draft. It's just what do you think this team should do? And of course, we'll talk about each pick as we go on. But Amir, CJ Stroud number one. Not that it needs a lot of explanation, but why do you have CJ Stroud here at the number one pick?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty standard pick, and in hindsight, Bryce Young obviously seemed like the better pick. Bryce Young had more success in his college career, but certain guys translate, certain guys don't. Seeing how the way CJ Stroud translated, despite him having a better roster around him, a better supporting cast around him, he had more promise and showed more. So CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I mean CJ Stroud, he's kind of breaking that. He's kind of broken that mold of Ohio State quarterbacks can't succeed at the next level. So again, shout out to CJ Stroud for playing as great as he is. But my question to you is, do you think CJ Stroud can? I guess I'm not going to say have as much success as he has with the weapons he has in Houston, but do you think he could be somewhat decent? Or I'll ask you, do you think he could be better than Bryce Young given the same situation?
But I mean, personally, I think he can. But it's not going to be much better. The Panthers' offense, doesn't contribute with him or Bryce Young in any way. I mean, the offensive line struggles. The receiving core struggles. The defense has struggled, and the play calling, everything around him struggles. And it'll be rough for him, to kind of come out and do what he's doing in Houston. The thing about Houston, they have Tank, they have Nico Collins, they have some weapons for him to to dominate with. With a defense that plays, decent, and gets stops when it's needed. The Panthers just don't have anything.
So what I'm hearing is the number one pick that goes to a bad situation it doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback. The situation matters. And I only bring that up because we'll talk about a certain player in a moment. But at number two, I'm not going to go Bryce Young. I'm going to go with my former quarterback of my favorite college team, the Florida Gators, Anthony Richardson. To me, the most dynamic quarterback in the class. We knew that. Of course, he came in with just about the same hype as Kyle Pitts after the combine, and all those numbers came out. But Anthony Richardson, to me, in his short time in the league with the Colts, gave them life. And it was really, kind of a down year, at least coming into the year. We were like, okay, the Colts, they still haven't figured out what's going on with Jonathan Taylor, and they don't really have a quarterback. And a lot of people were predicting them to win 4, 5, 6 games. And throughout the first couple of weeks of the season, everyone was like, hey, the Colts have a chance to make the playoffs because Anthony Richardson is that good. However, Richardson, he did have an injury and he was out for the season, but I think he started off the season great. And given that this coaching staff is very underrated, apparently, with D'Amico Ryans at the helm, I think Anthony Richardson would develop quite nicely. And I think he would have not as much success as CJ Stroud, but pretty rival numbers, if that makes any sense. But Anthony Richardson, I guess I'll ask you, Amir, do you think he could have as much or even more success than CJ Stroud at this point?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, even the eye test alone. I mean, the dude is a freakish athlete. Arguably the freakish athlete in this draft. For his position by far. And I mean, the dude, arm talent is off the strength. So, he has all the measurables. So I mean, his potential is even higher than CJ Stroud's if you
I
really think
agree.
about it.
Still. Yeah.
Yeah.
But moving over to number three, Amir, who do you have the Cardinals taking? Do they go with an offensive weapon? Do they go with a defensive guy? Of course, the Cardinals at this position, Kyler Murray's hurt for 10 weeks. So who do you take here to help this franchise?
So, for this third pick, you know, the Cardinals are going to go for Paris Johnson. I mean, realistically, coming into the season, obviously Kyler Murray's, future wasn't questioned, but, Kyler Murray is still the quarterback. And, the one thing you want to do is try to still win games with him. And so, there's no better way to get him an offensive lineman, get him a tackle that he needed, to kind of take off that pressure off of him. So I'm going
So
Paris Johnson.
So you do believe in Kyler Murray, which is good because I do too. I think he's very disrespected But again, Paris Johnson in real life is a guy that they traded down for, and they still got him at like pick 9. And I guess in this, redraft where we're not doing mock trades, Paris Johnson does still go to the Cardinals. So I guess it was just a perfect match, is a good way to put it. At number 4, though, like I said, it's the system and the situation that we have to also measure when we talk about these young rookie quarterbacks. To me, how I like to measure these rookie quarterbacks, and I'll ask you this, but I think I give these quarterbacks about a year and a half. I give them a first full year, and then I give them to about Thanksgiving of their second season until I really say, okay, he's legit. He can be the guy, or, he was overhyped, or he's just not the guy to lead a franchise. And to me, I'm going to give Bryce Young that same leeway. I mean, he's in a terrible situation with a 38-year-old Adam Thielen as his number one wide receiver. I mean, Hayden Hurst, he was a solid option, but he has had some health issues, and he's done for the season, maybe even his career at this point. I just think Bryce Young in that situation in Carolina was put in a very tough spot, which most number one picks are. And I think in a situation with a better O line, a quarterback whisperer, a quarterback guru of a coach in Shane Steichen. I just think, especially with the run game too, I think he's in a lot better position. And he's gonna. I mean, if he ended up in Indy instead of Carolina, I think Bryce Young might be up there with C.J. Stroud right now as the best quarterback in this class. But I want your thoughts on, I guess, Bryce Young to Indianapolis. Is that would that work out better for him, or do you think he would still struggle?
No, I think that definitely work out for him. And the Colts are a team that's been playing great this year with Minshew at quarterback. And the fact that their offense is still been able to produce points, with Minshew turning the ball over, with the inconsistencies, with taking care of the football. I think Bryson would definitely be able to come in and at least play a game manager role. The only thing he have to be able to do is just take care of the football and just make those third down throws, make those solid throws.
Absolutely, that's a great point. And then for Seattle, they have the number 5th pick. Where do you have them going? As do you believe in Geno? Do you take a quarterback? As again, 3 of them have already fallen off the board, or do you go with a defensive option? Who do you have the Seahawks taking here at 5?
So for the Seahawks, I'm going with their original pick. I'm gonna go Witherspoon here. This guy with Woolen, they've been anchoring this defense. And it's hard to come in and be a top 5 corner off rip. Sauce did it last year, and those two guys, Sauce and Witherspoon are just rare. Witherspoon came in and he didn't start off slow. He started off pretty well,
Yeah.
but ever since around like week 3 to week 4, he's just skyrocketed. He's probably been a top 3 most consistent corner in the league, we could say, and it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like that Thursday night game against the Lions where he did have his come out game where he had that crazy, what was it, like a 98-yard pick six or something.
Yeah.
Devin Witherspoon to me was my favorite prospect coming into the league. I saw a lot of people compare him to a guy like Denzel Ward, and I saw it. I thought he was a lot more polished and NFL ready, more so than another cornerback we'll talk about here in a moment that you will talk about in a moment. But I do like the Devin Witherspoon pick here for the Seahawks. Like you mentioned, they've anchored that defense. And for number 6, the Lions, of course, in real life, they traded this pick, and it was Paris Johnson who eventually went here. But to me, I think in this scenario where they stick in a pick, I'm going to go with just best player available. And to me, I think that is Jalen Carter, a guy who has been playing great there in Philly. And I think he just comes to this D line with Aiden Hutchinson and a couple other solid pieces on that defensive front. And I think he just wrecks havoc. So to me, Jalen Carter, in the situation that Detroit keeps the pick, they go ahead with best player available. And moving over to number 7, the very controversial Las Vegas Raiders. At this point, they still have Josh McDaniels. So maybe keep that in mind. Maybe that alters your pick here. But who do you think they should take at number 7? Could it be a quarterback? Do we see Will Levis go here? What direction are you going to go?
So at number 7, the person who, this might be controversial or debatable, but the person who I think has higher potential than Witherspoon, I'm going with Christian Gonzalez here. And based off the tape we've seen from Gonzalez when he was healthy this season, the dude was playing absolutely crazy. He went right in, was already polished, just like Witherspoon. He's probably honestly a slightly more athletic, and they're right there neck and neck. And I think in the long run, Gonzalez will be more, be a lot better for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think no doubt he has more potential than any other corner in this class, and he's really the biggest ball hawk. And we saw that. I mean, with the Patriots, who don't typically put up a lot of great turnover numbers. They're more so just, play defense, get three and outs, and score the ball. Of course, that's how they won so many Super Bowls. But I agree with you. I think this might be best player available on the board at this point, and he goes to a defense that needs defensive help. And then at number 8, it's one of the rare stick and picks where, Devin Witherspoon, exact spot, exact pick, no trades involved. I'm going to go Bijan Robinson here. I think it just with Arthur Smith's scheme, he wants to run, he wants to do a ground and pound scheme and rely on his running backs to win football games. Not maybe one of the most dynamic tight ends in NFL history. They want to rely on the running back position. To me, Bijan's one of those, I guess, anomaly kind of running back prospects. And I'm going to stick and pick here with Bijan at 8. Not much analysis there. But at number 9, I spoiled it. But why do you have these 6'8", 380-pound offensive tackle going to the Chicago Bears?
The thing about DeJuan Jones, it was interesting because, when the Browns first started having injuries, when he first got thrown into the fire, I mean, the dude was getting cooked. He was getting torched, and he looked, honestly trash. But ever since then, I mean, the dude hasn't played like a star tackle in this league, and that's exactly what the Bears are missing. The Bears are missing consistent old linemen that can take the pressure off for Justin Fields or whoever's back there at quarterback. And I think DeJuan Jones, with his size, his footwork, his foot speed, he fit in perfect with Chicago, being able to pass block well and also being able to run block.
Yeah, I mean, just, defending or protecting their quarterback is a good way to put it. At number 10, though, at this point, reigning NFC champions. And to me, again, it's a position where they traded up to get Jalen Carter. They don't get Jalen Carter in this draft, but I will give them the next best defensive player in Will Anderson, a guy who went number 3 in real life. And coming into the draft, a lot of people would say he had the most potential on the defensive side of the ball. Will Anderson to me is going to go to this stacked defensive front in Philly, play as a rotational pass rusher, and really just be that next Hassan Reddick. I guess that is a good pro comp for him anyway. He could be just a speed rusher off the edge, and in this Philly defense, rack up a bunch of sacks. But at number 11, I think this is a very interesting pick here, as in real life they went Peter Skoronski. Peter Skoronski still on the board to protect Ryan Tannehill. So I guess where do you go? Do you go quarterback? Do you go Skoronski or defensive option?
And so right here, I'm going to stay with Will Levis here. I think for the Titans at this point in the season, you know, um, these past weeks have kind of shown that, all right, this is our guy. This is the guy that we want to stick with. And coming into the season, I mean, the Titans didn't have much expectations. Like, they honestly kind of knew, Tannehill's going to be declining. We don't really see, us keeping Derrick Henry. We don't see us having much of a future. And so I think them still picking up Will Levis, he still shows promise. He still shows that he has a lot of potential. His arm talent is off the charts. And I think that's their guy that they want to stick with for the future.
No, I do think it is very interesting to take Will Levis here. Originally, he was a second round pick or third round, if I'm not mistaken. And I guess shortly after the draft, we always remember the girlfriend, the drama that went around where she looked displeased that her guy wasn't a first round pick. And what is her name? Gia Duddy, something like that. But I saw a TikTok the other day where I thought it was pretty interesting. Will Levis has been playing great. Of course, he's a starter there in real life for Tennessee still. And every single game after he has a good game, fans will go to her comment section of her IG and they just post the stats. And I just think that's hilarious. Will Levis, he's one of those guys that's weird. Again, mayo and coffee. But I think he's definitely had a lot of promising, moments. And I think especially this past Monday night, they had a big win over the Dolphins, and he made a lot of crazy throws, especially right before half. There was like a triple cover DeAndre Hopkins, and he just fit it right in the bucket. Looked exactly like an Aaron Rodgers throw. But again, Will Levis here. Any last thoughts before we move on to 12?
No, no, I think he fits perfect with the Titans, and he gives them hope. He brings that energy, and
Yeah.
the arm talent was never the problem or the concern with him. Being a quarterback in this league is also about in between the lines, the mental capacity. So, he's honestly exceeding those expectations.
And then we move over to a division foe in the AFC South, a team that already has Anthony Richardson. So do they add more to the offense? Do they get another receiver? In real life, I guess at this point they don't have Tank Dell, but I will add to the defensive side of the ball. In real life, they had the number 2 pick and they traded for the number 3 pick to get Will Anderson and to get CJ Stroud. To me, they don't get Will Anderson in this mock draft. But they get the next best thing in Byron Young, a guy who has been killing it for the Rams. He's up there. I think he's top 5 in the league in sacks. I know he led for a good amount of time, but another promising prospect, no pun intended. And to me, he's going to be able to set that edge to the level of Will Anderson. He doesn't have as much potential, but this is still a guy that's going to be able to help defensively. So they get their offensive guy, their defensive guy, and they're right back to where they are in real life. But at number 13, I spoiled it again, but let me know why you're going to give Jordan Love some protection here.
Yeah, so the thing about the Packers, I mean, in my opinion, the receiving core is obviously, probably like slightly above average. Christian Watson started the season off slow and it kind of, delayed their offensive growth and their production. But, at the end of the day, Jordan Love will only succeed and only do better with a great, offensive line. And the fact that Bakhtiari can never stay healthy, he's hurt every single year. I think going ahead and going Skoronski will also help him be able to make the throws that he's, pretty much needs to excel this offense.
Yeah, I mean, PFF has Skoronski as like an all-pro level guy right now, which is crazy. I don't try and get into those advanced numbers too much, but they have him as like an all-pro right now for the Tennessee Titans. So Skoronski's been off to a great start, and again, more production for Jordan Love, a franchise guy in my opinion. I'm all for it. At number 14, we have a weird guy, a weird team, a team that in real life has underperformed. It is the New England Patriots. And I'm just going to go, keep it within house. And that's what teams like the Patriots and the Steelers do. They keep it close to home and keep it, personal connections is a good way to put it. So to me, we know Bill Belichick loves Nick Saban. He loves Bama players. And he gets one here in Brian Branch, a guy who in real life was overlooked. And I think a second round pick or third round pick to the Lions. And he was overlooked to say the least, but he's played really good football for the Lions. And to me, he goes to a Patriots team that doesn't get Christian Gonzalez in this world. And Brian Branch is not a perimeter corner, is a good way to put it. He's not a lockdown guy like Gonzalez, but he's still a guy that can rover. And you can have him and Jabril Peppers on the field at the same time, just kind of doing, whatever they need, playing in the slot or playing in the box or even back deep. So I think Brian Branch, Alabama guy and Patriots just kind of go together. So at number 15, we have the New York Jets. At this point, they just got Aaron Rodgers. A lot of promise, a lot of fun ahead of them, at least you would think. They obviously aren't expecting Rodgers to tear his knee up. So where do you have them going here with some offense or maybe some defense?
So right here, the Jets defense is already elite. It's already a top defense in the league.
Yeah, we're
And
seeing that.
exactly. And so I'm going to go ahead and go for offense here. I'm going to grab Puka Nacua. And Puka Nacua, I feel like is a guy that's, kind of like a more of a system guy. I think McVay and the Rams are doing a great job of using him. And I
Yes.
believe the fact that he's going to come into with a better quarterback, in Aaron Rodgers, and the fact that he's going to have, other receivers around him as well to also help him excel. The thing about Puka Nacua that helped him, helped his development though was the fact that Cooper Kupp being out. And I feel like him kind of getting thrown into the fire and him utilizing him early kind of helped his growth. But I feel like with the Jets, he's going to come in with the same kind of, production. Garrett Wilson's next to him. And it's going to be
That
those
takes
two
pressure
putting
off immediately.
exactly. So it's going to cause immediate havoc between those two.
Yeah, I mean, in this world, technically they still sign Alan Lazard. So you have a receiving core for Aaron Rodgers that is Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, Alan Lazard, McCole Hardman, because he was still here at this point. That's
Right.
an elite wide receiver core for Aaron Rodgers. And I think Puka, given that the number one corners are going to be on Garrett Wilson all the time, he might even turn into a bigger star. I think we
Exactly.
might see that same development. And then at 16, I'm going to go with fit over talent. And that's no shade to a guy like Sam Laporta, but I think Sam Laporta going into this offense, he can either sit behind Logan Thomas or he can really, at this point, I think he's better than Logan Thomas. So you can put him in the system. They still have running backs like Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson. This is an offense that at heart, they still have Ron Rivera. They want to run the ball. So they can do that. Sam Laporta is a more complete tight end than Dalton Kincaid. So I think he gives them that run blocking. He gives them that elite receiving ability because, I mean, Sam Howell has the most pass attempts in the league. But again, he's also a better blocker. And again, he's not going to stop these elite pass rushers to getting to Sam Howell, but he can at least save a couple hits on the quarterback. So I think just better blocker, better all around tight end. He can help in the run game, in the pass game. But that is going to do it. Again, we can run through the drafts really quick as well. Actually, at this point, we won't. But we ran through the first 16. If you guys did enjoy it, let us know and we can maybe do, 17 to 32. But We really only wanted to do the first half of the first round because after that, it's really just hypotheticals, and the one pick can change the entire rest of the draft. But again, if you guys enjoyed that much, let us know. But before we get out of here, we do want to run through our basic necessities, the necessities each and every week. And for my power rankings, of course, Amir, we'll get to yours in a moment. Jacksonville, they dropped out. They dropped out of my list, and they dropped down to number 10 last week because we didn't know the severity of Trevor Lawrence's injury. However, he did end up suiting up against the Browns, and that was a terrible decision. There were so many times where Amir, who me and you were texting back and forth between the game, and Trevor Lawrence was taking hit after hit and big hit after big hit where he was just falling on his ankle, or we had defensive linemen, falling on his lower half. And we were just like, why is he in the game? So Trevor
Exactly.
Lawrence, to me, I think, again, he obviously was not 100%. He had 4 turnovers against the Browns. So just for the injuries that are in this offense, I have them falling out. But again, they're number 11 on my list. And then right outside, we have the Jake Browning led or Cincinnati Bengals, rather. They've won 2 straight, and to me, they just have a good roster. Again, they were my Super Bowl favorite coming into the year, but they don't have that the guy in Joe Burrow. And then Josh Allen and the Bills. We'll have to see where you have them, but for me, I have them right outside my list just because, sure, they picked up a big win against the Kansas City Chiefs, but they were also one offsides call away from losing that game, and we wouldn't even consider them for the top 10. We know they have the talent. They've just underperformed this year, like I predicted in the preseason. But let's get into it. Amir, I'll let you run through your 10 through 6 in that order, and then I'll go from there. But at number 10, who do you have?
Yeah, so for my top 10, number 10 spot, I got the Browns. Some may call me biased, but I mean, this Browns defense has been anchoring them week by week and winning games after games. And, I think this past week kind of showed that the only thing the Browns were missing was a somewhat competent quarterback, someone that can take care of the football, just make those intermediate throws. And the fact that the Browns are doing this with Joe Flacco, that is, came from sitting on the couch and throwing the football to his children, this shows that this defense has been anchoring this team to deserve a top 10 spot.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I hope Watson's out there somewhere watching this and saying, this is the bare minimum that I needed to, that I need to do, excuse me. As we know, look, Flacco's way past his prime. He's 10 years past his prime. And this is a guy that's just taking what the defense gives you, doing the bare minimum, and taking care of the football. And we know Watson can take it to that next level. That's why he's getting paid all that money. But I hope he's somewhere watching Flacco and he's realizing I don't need to do too much to be the quarterback on this winning football team, at least with this defense. At number 9, who do you have?
Yeah, so at number 9, I got the Broncos. Some people actually, had comments to say about the Broncos being this high last week. But I mean, in reality, the Broncos are, 6-1 in their past 7 games. I mean, they've been the straight steamrolling teams. Their defense is playing lights out, which is a huge concern after they give up 70 points to the Dolphins. But I mean, in that span, I mean, they forced like 20 plus takeaways. I mean, their defense has been top 10 to top 5 in the league. Their offense and run game has been elite. Russell's playing on an MVP level. And so for that point, I'm putting Broncos at 9.
I mean, of those 6 wins, the least impressive win was this past week against the Chargers. And again, that was because of injury. But again, like you mentioned, very deserving of this spot. At number 8, you do have the Buffalo Bills. Why do you have this much trust in Josh Allen?
Yeah, so I had Buffalo. I was kind of stuck on where I wanted to put them at. But, in reality, I think they're better than Jacksonville. I think they're better than any other team that, I've set up to this point. Even the teams that are right outside the top 10, like I think they're better than Cincy. I think they're better than Green Bay, better than those teams. And I mean, they're past their recent. They've honestly played well enough for me to say they're a top 10 team. I mean, it took down KC. Absolutely steamrolled the Jets by 30. I mean, the Eagles. If they don't hit a 59-yard field goal, I mean, shoot. I
Yeah,
mean, they're
in the
sitting
in
at
the
8
terrible
and 5.
weather.
Exactly, like they're sitting at 8 and 5, and I mean, and they're undoubtedly a top 10 team without no debate. So I'm
Yeah.
choosing Buffalo here.
And then your 6 and 7 spots, they did remain the same. You have the Miami Dolphins and the Lions staying at 6 and 7. Any thoughts there before we hop over to my list?
Even though both teams lost, I still kind of have the mindset, the NFL is any given Sunday. Obviously, I'm not high on the Lions. And honestly, I mean, the Lions are like a loss or two away from me dropping them down, you know,
I
pretty
agree.
far, probably a couple spots, but the Dolphins up to this point have showed enough that, they're just outside the top 5.
Yeah.
Their defense is still, It's good, but inconsistent at times. The offense is still at the top of the league, and so I think they've done enough for me to still keep them at six.
Shifting over to my side of the list on the left side of your screen, I'm going to just display the teams that I have in the same exact spots as you. We have a couple of them. We have the Cleveland Browns at 10. I agree with you. The defense has been there. And again, I just want Watson to watch this and learn that you just need to do the bare minimum and you can win football games. You don't have to do too much, which I think he has a tendency to do. And then I have the Dolphins sitting here at 6. Again, we're still waiting for that big time win. And not that this loss recently really takes them down the rankings, but we're just waiting for that big time win. And again, a team that is in my top 5 now has had that big time win, which is why I moved them up into my top 5. But as one of the biggest Alliance supporters here on YouTube, I do recognize they've lost 2 straight, and even before that, they had a couple shaky weeks. They're just not the same team they were, in the first month or so of the season. So I do recognize, and I did drop them down my list as I'm starting to lose confidence. And I agree with you. If they start to lose 1 or 2 more games in a row, they might have to leave my top 10. And I hate to say that. But at number 9 and at number 8, I do have the Broncos. You have them 9, I have them at 8. Mr. Unlimited is playing like that at this point in the year. And then for the Houston Texans, I do have them only dropping a spot. I have them staying in my top 10 for all the injuries that they've had. I mean, last week they got steamrolled by the Jets, but CJ Stroud went out with injury. Nico Collins went out with injury. They had some injuries on the defensive side of the ball as well. It just wasn't in their cards for that week. I mean, they were relying on Noah Brown and Brevin Jordan. I don't think any team wants to rely on those two to win a game. So to me, I'm gonna have them in my top 10 with just knowing that they had to deal with a lot of injuries last week, and that's really why I have them there. In the top 5, though, we both have the Kansas City Chiefs at number 5. I'll let you dive into it. Why do you have them continuing to fall down these rankings? Maybe aside from just losing last week.
Yeah, so I have the Chiefs at 5. I'm still kind of high on them. I still don't think they're in panic mode just yet. That's because history says, Mahomes and the Chiefs are contenders as it is. And so I have to drop them down a spot. I mean, because that loss is unacceptable. You know, despite them having an offsides penalty and it being controversial. I mean, come on now. Like that's like the little detail stuff that's been losing them games this whole year. I mean, the whole year has been just compromise of the drops, penalties, you know, bad, pretty much bad discipline in these big games. This is week in and week out why I keep dropping them down.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and I agree with you as well. As they're not in panic mode yet, but I mean, a loss or two more, and we might have to start having a real conversation about these Chiefs because Travis Kelce is not the Travis Kelce that we've known the last couple of years. But of course, he's great, but everybody needs some help. At your number 4, you do have a team that just won a crazy overtime game, and I'm gonna assume that you have them dropping in the rankings not because of how they looked, but because of other teams that have just looked better. But why do you have the Baltimore Ravens here at number 4?
Yeah, so Baltimore, Baltimore has a team is a team that's been dominant. But I didn't drop down one just because the teams above them have shown more up to this point in my opinion. But man, Baltimore looked great this past week. I would say the defense looked rough. The secondary looked rough. But I mean, Lamar's playing on an MVP level here, and Baltimore's honestly slowly but surely proven to why they might be arguably the best team in the AFC up to this point.
Yeah. At number 3, I believe we have the same number 3 team, and we do, in the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that that me and you, it seems like since you really hopped on the podcast, we've had them at number 1, and number 1 or number 2, because I know you shuffled with the Chiefs there for a couple weeks. This is a team that has been on a bit of a a downward spiral as of late. And, they've had a couple losses, but in their defense, from my end, they've had the toughest stretch of football out of any team out of all season as they faced 4 legitimate Super Bowl contenders, some would say. But why do you have the Eagles here at number 3? And did you consider maybe dropping them even lower?
No, I mean, the Eagles at number 3, they've got absolutely dominated this past 2 games. And, I was thinking about putting Baltimore over them, but it's like you said, I mean, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, they've had the toughest stretch of games. I mean, they played Dallas, KC, Buffalo. Then you go ahead and play
San
the Niners.
Fran?
Exactly. Then you go back to Dallas and play Dallas again. And then you got Seattle coming up. And it's honestly just tough for this team. They're probably all feeling beat up, having to come in and play these tough physical teams week by week. But Yeah, I mean, I said they only dropped down a spot. I think they're still slightly better than Baltimore. I think they showed more up to this point. And, I mean, they've honestly beat, better teams up to this point.
At your number two, you have America's team. Here we go. Yeah, some would say for Dak Prescott, but why do you have America's team here in the top two?
Now I know some people might think, oh, don't put Dallas, the Cowgirls at number two, but I mean, really, I mean, Dak is playing the best he's played since arguably his rookie year. I mean, the dude is playing confident, and that's the difference maker when I compare him versus Baltimore versus Philly. I mean, he's playing better than all, but than Hurts and Lamar Jackson, which has been putting his team over the top, and that's been the biggest concern. What's been holding his team back the past few years? It's the reason why they lost against San Fran 2 years in a row. But it's like now, that Dak is pretty much showing like, look, I'm here to stop all that. I'm here to change, pretty much the reputation of this team and to show that, we're the second best team in the league. And they honestly proved it this past week.
And at number one, I want you to explain why you have the Houston Texans at number one.
So number one spot, I got the Carolina Panthers. No, I'm telling you, I got the Niners. It's pretty obvious at this point. Whether you believe Brock Purdy is the MVP or not, this team has been dominant. I mean, they've blown out a bunch of these teams. I mean, they dominated Dallas early in the year. They absolutely steamrolled the Eagles. And, outside that 3 game stretch, the Niners have been completely just unbelievable. And
Yeah.
that 3 game stretch, I mean, they had a giant list of injuries. Since they've been healthy, I mean, they look completely unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean the Niners again. If they're not number one, they're number two. But you can't even make that argument with the Eagles and how they lost last week. But ever since that bye week they had, they've been a different team. And of course, getting pieces at the deadline, most notably Chase Young, they help that. And Debo Samuel's maybe playing the best football of his career at the moment. At number two and number four, I have the same teams as you. I just have them flip flopped. And my basic reasoning is this: for Baltimore at number two, they have the highest point differential. Lamar is playing good football. I'm not going to say his best football, but he's still playing really good. Although Beckham is turning back the clock. Zay Flowers is arguably the best rookie wide receiver. This offense is filling the void of Mark Andrews being gone, and their defense is one of the best in the league. You can argue maybe the best in the league. So to me, just with given their schedule this year, their resume, so to speak, of the teams that they've beaten, I think that's a little bit more impressive than the Dallas Cowboys, who at this point have only beaten one team that's over 500, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them at number four for the simple fact that, sure, they blew out the Eagles by 20 plus points, but the Eagles were also coming off of a very tough 4 game stretch, and they were tired and they were beaten up coming into that matchup. When these teams were relatively both healthy and at full strength, the Eagles beat them just a few weeks prior. It's hard to be the same team twice, like we talk about. And to me, the Cowboys just had a better day of football. But to add on to what you said earlier, I think this is the best version of Dak Prescott we've ever seen. And not to mention, CeeDee Lamb's making a case to be a top 5 wide receiver in the game. Your thoughts on that? Do you think, one, this is the best season of Dak Prescott we've ever seen? And two, do you think CeeDee Lamb's a top 5 wide receiver?
Yeah, man, CeeDee Lamb has been playing insane, and this is definitely probably the best Dak has played in his career. And like we've been saying, I mean, Dak, you know, up to this point, in the NFL, you honestly need an elite quarterback to win games. And the fact that Dak's
Yeah.
playing on the top 3 level right now, arguably the best in the league up to this point,
Yeah.
it's showing and it's being obvious to the Cowboys' production.
Yeah, and then for CeeDee Lamb, I've seen the question circulating. Do you think he's up there? Because at full health, hypothetical, this is not my top 5. I'm just throwing some names out there. Justin Jefferson, I think we can both take Jefferson, right?
Yep,
At full
definitely.
health, we're taking Jefferson. Jamar Chase, would you take Chase or would you take CeeDee Lamb?
True. Right now, I'm taking CeeDee Lamb the way he's been playing.
At full health, you're taking CeeDee Lamb over Jamar?
Up right now this year, I'm taking CeeDee Lamb. He's
Okay.
been cooking.
I would differ, but let's just keep this going. So would you take AJ Brown or CeeDee Lamb?
Man, I'm taking AJ Brown.
AJ Brown, I agree. So that's 2 wide receivers. And then let's go down the list. Devontae
Taking
Adams.
Tyreek Hill.
You're taking Tyreek Hill, I'm assuming also.
Uh-huh.
But what about Devontae Adams? Devontae Adams or CeeDee Lamb?
I'm not taking Devontae Adams as of now.
So what it sounds like, or Keenan Allen, he's having a great season. Keenan Allen or CeeDee Lamb right now?
I mean, right now I'm still gonna take CD Lamb, based off of Keenan Allen being made of glass.
So what I'm hearing is I mean, he's definitely, if he's not five, he's six. So he's definitely in that argument, and I don't think anybody's arguing that. But to me, if he's not five on my list, he's number six. Regardless, you have your quarterback and your wide receiver playing their best career football, and Tony Pollard's still trying to figure things out. So Dallas, I think they're respectable this year, but come playoff time, I don't think they are going to make much noise. Then we move over to the race for Caleb. The Bears with the Panthers pick, they still hold strong at number one, and it looks like they're going to have that pick at the end of the season, especially with the Patriots just winning a football game. So they just won, kind of hurting their chances. And, I guess Bailey Zapp and Ezekiel Elliott are all you need to beat the Steelers. The Cardinals, they won yet again. They're 3-10 as Kyler Murray is on his tour to keep this pick away from a Caleb Williams tier. Washington, they lost, or I guess they've lost four straight. They're coming off of a bye week. Maybe that's the much needed reset they need. And then the Bears, with their actual pick, are here at 5-8. And some would say they're probably gonna, Justin Fields might sabotage them out of this pick here, and they might end up with 6 or 7. But that is the race for Caleb. And again, the Raiders, they're right there. The Chargers are right here to make a jump into that spot. But that is the race for Caleb. Week 14, we're going to breeze past this because, of course, this is very embarrassing. My worst record in this podcast is history, dating back to last year when I was doing these two. We were both 5-8 last week. We'll skip past that. Of course, our records took a little bit of a hit. But then moving over to this week, and I'll give you realm here. I'll give you the freedom to pick a game if you want, or just kind of run through your picks, as we only differ on 2 games this week, and that is the Denver and Detroit game that takes place on Saturday night, and then the Tampa Bay and Green Bay game, which is again a 50-50 toss-up.
Yeah, so the game I would talk about is that Denver Detroit game. I think the Denver's playing the best football. Man, honestly, Denver's probably, I'd argue, the top three hottest teams in the league right now. And I think based off of how Detroit has been dwindling these past few weeks, how they've been struggling offensively, how Jared Goff has been struggling to take care of the football. I think the fact that, Denver, who's honestly been elite at making takeaways, I think they're going to go into Detroit. They're going to be confident, and that's exactly what they need Detroit to do.
Yeah, I
Throw
mean,
picks, force fumbles, all those good things.
yeah, I think Detroit, to me, I have them here out of spite, because I've been backing them for weeks and weeks. If they can't get this win against Denver, which some would say is not even a top 10 team in the league, then there's going to be a lot of questions. I think it is going to be panic mode for Dan Campbell and the crew. But so for the simple fact that they're home and Jared Goff plays a lot better when he's home, I think Detroit's going to win, but it's going to be a classic. I think this game has the potential to be game of the week. Actually, I'll say that. I think it is going to be game of the week, and that might be controversial with some of the games we have later on in the schedule. But then for Tampa Bay and Green Bay, I guess there's not much to talk about here. You have two middle of the pack quarterbacks in Baker and Jordan Love. The Packers had a down week. They're looking to bounce back. The Buccaneers, I mean, they got a late game win last week, so shout out to Baker Mayfield leading that game winning drive. But they're first in their division now at 6-7. So again, for the second time in a couple years, a team with a below 500 record might win this NFC South. Kind of embarrassing when you think about it, but I guess not much to talk about here. It's kind of who do you think has the ball last, in my opinion, for this game.
Yeah.
And then we move over to the other slate of games. Of course, we agree on every single one here, which is going to happen a lot towards the tail end of the season because we know what these teams are. We know what their goals, their goals may have changed or due to injuries or whatever the case may be. There's not a lot to debate with some of these games. But I will ask you here. We do have Tennessee getting an upset win here against Houston. Why do you have that? Because again, Houston, if CJ Stroud is back, they're going to be, the same offense they've been.
Yeah, so I mean, or not Houston, but Tennessee is a team that's been great at home all year long. I mean, their two losses were against elite teams at home, and last week I think kind of gave them life, gave them hope, and the fact that Will Levis is getting better week by week, I think is kind of scary.
Yeah,
On top of the fact that Houston is also dealing with injuries. I think this week Nico Collins is out, obviously Tank Dell's out for the rest of the year, and
Dalton
so
Schultz is out.
exactly. So I think at this point Tennessee is in a perfect spot.
Yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud, he might not even clear concussion protocol for this Sunday. So if he's
Exactly.
not, then this isn't even an upset pick, which we'll talk about that in a moment too. But then I guess we both the only other shocker is Buffalo over Dallas, and we both had Dallas in our top four. You had them in the top two. I guess that is a bit of a shocker, but to me, it really comes down to Buffalo's home, and they need to win way more than Dallas. Yeah, I guess depends on which side you want to argue, but to me, I think Buffalo this is one of those games where they're just going to win. I think Sean McDermott, he's on a hot seat more than he might believe he is. And I think they need this win more than Dallas. So I would go with Buffalo at home. Maybe the weather is in their favor as well. But any last thoughts on any of these games on the schedule? Maybe the Buffalo game. Any last thoughts on these games here?
No, honestly, I'm excited for these games. I'm excited for the Buffalo and Dallas game. I think this is going to be game of the week. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be high energy. And I'm pretty much ready for Josh Allen to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, I think this can be the game to put the Bills back on the map, and that's a good way to put it. But who knows? Maybe Dallas just comes out and they continue to be dominant. But again, this is one of those big games for Dallas for me that they need to win this game over a competent team. They haven't done that this year. I'd like to see that here against the Bills. But then moving over here, and a little bit of a hiccup here, but we'll run through it. Gives you time, gives you guys more times to look at it. Upset picks of the week. Again, these don't necessarily go they don't count towards our record, whether if they're right or wrong. But in this case, I do have Tampa in the real predictions and my upset of the week. I kind of talked about it. 50-50 ball game, but I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield to get the much needed win. You have the Panthers, though, over the Atlanta Falcons. And why do you think a one-win football team with a new head coach relatively can get a win this weekend?
I'm looking at the Panthers and you know, honestly, in my opinion, the most dangerous teams are teams that have nothing to lose. As I'm looking at the Panthers schedule, I mean, if they were to win any game, for this in this season, to end the season off, it will be this game. They're at home. Um, it's a divisional game. Despite how terrible they've been offensively, I think they're gonna go in and pretty much play with nothing to lose.
Yeah,
Play hard, play 100% physical every snap.
that's one of the most dangerous teams to play when they have nothing to lose. For hot takes, I mean, technically, I looked at the stat sheet and I was mad because I had this locked in before the Monday night game. But I think Will Levis is gonna. My original prediction was that he was gonna have his first ever 300-yard passing game, which doesn't seem like a hot take, but he hasn't had one all season. This past week, he had 302. So my prediction is a little bit skewed here, but I'm going to say that Will Levis back-to-back weeks against a tougher, Houston Texans defense. I'll say he goes back-to-back 300 yards weeks, and this momentum keeps riding for the Tennessee Titans. But then your hot take and your player of the week kind of go together. So why don't you, I guess, explain that one?
Yeah, so for my hot take, I was gonna go I was gonna go overboard and say 70 plus, but I'm going 60 plus. I think this game is gonna be a high scoring game of 60 plus points. I think Josh Allen is gonna throw over something crazy like 300 to 350 yards. I think this game is gonna be kind of similar to how Dallas played Seattle a couple weeks back. I think both teams are gonna go out and just put on the show.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna keep, pleading his MVP case. He's gonna put up big numbers. I think this game will put Buffalo back on track and give them the confidence they need.
Absolutely. And then for my player of the week, I'm going to go with the Sun God, Amon Ra, one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's probably my favorite wide receiver in the NFL, in all honesty. But this is a guy that is, playing for an offense that needs a win. He's coming off his worst game of the season. It was one of his few games where he didn't have over 100 receiving yards. And he's going to be matched up with Pat Surtain for the majority of this game. So I think Detroit is going to get a much needed win. And like I said, maybe the game of the week. But our Super Bowl favorites, I was a bit surprised to see this. I'm still a Philly guy. I still think that, they've been my pick all season outside of Cincinnati. So to me, I think I'm still rolling with Philly. But despite the struggles, you have them as well. Why do you have them over a team like the 49ers?
Yeah, and I can't believe I'm saying this in week 15, but I still believe Philly has not played their best football yet.
I
You know,
agree.
I still believe they have not hit their ceiling, hit that next gear, that next level. And honestly, people are panicking, like, oh man, they got blown off back-to-back weeks. But I mean, shoot, we saw the Niners lose against the Vikings, the Browns, and the Bengals in a 3-week span. Look at them now.
Yeah.
So I would never count Philly out. I would never count Jalen Hurts out. And this team plays better when the backs are against the wall when they have adversity coming against them.
Yeah, I mean they had a very tough stretch. It's impressive in its own right that they went 2-2 in that stretch, 3-2.
Exactly.
If you count the 5 week stretch, so it's impressive, in that own right. And again, like you mentioned, I'm rolling with Jalen Hurts at the end of the day. But that is going to do it here for today's episode. Amir, any last thoughts before we get out of here? Exciting week of football, of course. Tonight we have some fantasy football coming out, so some start sit options tonight at 6 o'clock. Fantasy playoffs are right around the corner, so if you guys are interested, tune into that. But Amir, any last thoughts before we get out of here into the weekend?
No, man, it's a pleasure like always. Always a pleasure being on this show. I'm happy to be with you guys. Happy, this channel is growing and 10K coming soon by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit behind schedule. We were gaining about 1,000 to 1,200 a week. We're slowing down a little bit, but it just takes one video to get us back to that milestone goal. At least we're trying to hit by the end of the year. But as always, if you guys enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, tell a friend about the podcast, and road to 10K. I'll see you guys next week. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy. We're out of here.